for 2026, so I left that one off. But we have a large portion that have updated in 2025, but then we have more down at that before COVID, or I can't remember. So I always say that when that's the case, your employer should be very happy. That means you're kind of happy where you're at. But I always do think that you should be ready for whatever opportunity comes along. So so when this is just that, right? We're just going to get dust our resumes off and figure out how we can improve it for when the next opportunity does present itself. And maybe that's a promotion inside of your organization that you'd be applying for. So without further ado, I will just jump right in. So usually I ask what agency you work for, but you're all in the same agency, so I won't do that today. But the good thing about Tennessee state government that I like to highlight is that if you do move in Tennessee state government, that you get to take your benefits with you. So that's one of the things that when we think of Tennessee state government, we think of it as one large employer, because we know you move. Oftentimes people move through different agencies. Oftentimes they end right back up in the agency that they started with because they enjoyed that agency. But just that's one of the things we're not teaching you how to write your resume to leave Tennessee state government. We're trying to teach you how to write your resume to advance within Tennessee state government. So I want to throw that out there. So this session will cover how to craft a clear and compelling resume that highlights your strengths and aligns with your career goals. You'll learn tips on formatting, tailoring your experience, and avoiding some of those common pitfalls. This is all designed to help your resume stand out. So I'm going to ask the quick question. And the quick question that I have for you all, and you could drop it in the chat. Let me get my chat up. My question for you all is, how long, if you're a hiring manager, if you've never hired, then this is probably not a question you can answer, but how long do you spend reviewing a resume? How long do you spend, or how long do you think a hiring manager spends reviewing one resume? Adam said 5 to 10 minutes, okay? April said 2. Less than 5 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes, okay? So we're around less than 2 minutes. So I'm a hiring manager, and I'll tell you, for my last job posting, I had 85 that I was supposed to review. We all know we're on the clock. Once that list gets sent to us, we're on the clock, right? Yep, it depends on how the resume looks. Great job, Percy, right? So sometimes I'm just gonna give you the truth. This is my recommendation, do not ask ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot to write your resume and use it exactly as what it produces. And I'll tell you why. People know the formatting that ChatGPT uses. It doesn't mean you don't use ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or any of those to help you refine your resume. But my recommendation, because oftentimes I've heard hiring managers say, if I see a ChatGPT resume, I don't even look at it. So just wanted to throw that out there. But usually I would say 5 minutes is the max. I don't hear many people answer in the 5-minute range. It's usually around that 3 minutes or less per resume. That's really dedicated to the review. So when you think of that, you need to make sure that your resume is very skimmable. If that's a word, I'm just making that word up, but it is, right? You can just skim it for the high points and the important parts of your important parts, the most important parts. So the next thing I want you all to do, and so how many of you have your resume? If you have your resume, drop a Y with you or handy that you could pull it up. If you do, drop a Y in the chat. Oh, I see Brittany raised her hand. So did you have a question, or is that yes, you have your resume? Oh, let me get back to the new messages. Yeah. So most people have their resume with them. Okay, great. So the next thing I would like you to do then is go to your browser and search for a job title that interests you. It can be internal or external to the state. It doesn't have to be a very, it doesn't have to be a, doesn't have to be a long process. Just open up a browser, your preferred browser, search a job title that interests you, and you can either just keep that open because we'll use it a little bit later in the session, or you could copy it into a Word document. It's up to you. But I will give you 3 minutes to do that. So I'll give you till 11:10 to accomplish that task because we're going to do some practical application. And we'll just say if you get done sooner, you can, drop done in the chat. So I know when people are starting to finish up. And I'll even share, it doesn't have to be in your current field, even if you just have an interest outside of. You have about 1 more minute. And again, you're going to just want to keep those handy because as we progress through the lunch and learn, your resume and that job description will be useful. Okay. So now I'm going to launch another poll. Hopefully. Yep. Okay. So it's looking like the majority of our respondents are having that chronological resume. What resume? I do not have one. 11%. Okay. I have no idea. Please help. That's why I'm here. Okay, so we're still got some responses coming in. We have about 26 people responding, and so it looks like nobody is listing themselves as having a functional resume. Okay. Good to know. All right. So with that, we are going to discuss a little bit about oh, sorry, about the differences. So the common resume formats and are chronological. That's most common. It's used when you have a really solid work history. So if you've been in the workforce for quite a bit of time, the chronological is usually where people default to. Functional is really a more skills-based resume, and it's usually used when you have a limited work history or gaps in your work history that you don't want to highlight. So oftentimes that functional resume is used for recently graduated college students, that kind of thing, or, somebody with, as previously stated, maybe I was working and then I took some time off to go and get my master's degree, or, have a child or whatever it could be. And then so you may want to switch to that functional. And then the combination uses both versions to best highlight your skills and experience concisely. So you may actually figure out that you do maybe have a bit of a combination. But we'll talk more about exactly how to tell that. Okay, so here are two examples on the left. I know it's a little bit small, but I'm just trying to show you in general what the format is and what it looks like. So on the left is that chronological. It really lists out the dates and times, so June 23 to present, April 21 to June 23, and so on and so forth as you go down the resume. Then this one, as you see, it has the objective and the skills, and then it really lists out your skills, but it also has a version of work history on here. To be honest, these are both slightly a combinational, because here some of the skills are called out, and then here there's some of that work history in there, but just a straight up would be more of the professional skills, and then a quick synopsis maybe of your work history starts here and ends here, or something along those lines. Questions about the format for the chronological or the functional or the combination? Yeah, Christina said a change in career fields, maybe. Yes, another reason why you would want to show skills versus some of these roles that you have. So if my whole career field, I was in the medical field and now I want to go into HR, I probably need to highlight the skills that I had from the medical field that tie into my new career in HR. So very good example, Christina. Okay, so resume sections. So take a moment, and while we're doing this, to look at your resume and see, do you have, they don't have to be in a particular order, but do you have all of the sections that you should have on your resume? You should have your contact information, and we'll go over in more detail what that should look like. You should have your summary and objective. That's that quick. Oftentimes, if you're just entering the workforce, it would be more like the role you're searching for, but then which is the objective, but the summary is more like I'm an HR professional with over 20 years of experience, and what do I bring to the table? Like my elevator pitch, essentially. Then a section for your skills that you would like to highlight, a section for your experience, which is really mainly your job history, and then, of course, denoting that education. And then, of course, if there is a certification or project or anything like that that would make you more appealing for the role, then also adding that, but that as an optional field. So if you have all of those sections on your resume, give me a thumbs up. I heard Christina telling you where to find the, so I'm seeing some come in. Okay. Well, okay, so we're looking pretty good so far, so I'm impressed. So this is going to show you in a little bit more detail each of those areas. So you'll see at the top of mine, and I'm very transparent. So this is my real resume. It needs some work, but it is my real resume that I currently keep as I call it a working resume. But this is my contact information. So you see, I don't have an address up here, and that is very deliberate, especially if you're searching for jobs outside of your local area, oftentimes people see this and say, well, we don't pay relocation, so they're not going to want to move, right? But even though you may be interested in making a move there, so oftentimes this is something that I recommend, is not putting your location. Some people think that that's a best practice, but I've seen it impact hiring decisions, or interviewing decisions even. Then you have your summary and objective. You definitely, I feel like mine's a little long. I think I could use a little smart brevity here and get it into a more concise statement. Then here is your skills. And so when we talk about tailoring, this is a big area where tailoring can be to your advantage, because this is a quick list of bulleted items that can draw the attention of the resume reviewer. Then I have my professional experience, and my recommendation when it comes to this, and we'll talk more about this, is don't just list out your responsibilities, because your responsibilities are exactly that, what you were responsible for. What it doesn't speak to is how well you did the job. So you'll see here that I've listed out who I was employed by, what my role was, what office I was in, my timeline. But then I tell them that what was my responsibilities, and I keep it in one sentence. So I was establishing the strategic direction for performance culture, talent acquisition, and employee experience programs for the 40K plus Tennessee state government workforce. That's my responsibility. So here again, establish the strategic direction for diversity programs for Tennessee state government workforce. But what did I do? What are my accomplishments? What did I accomplish in that? Now, granted, you probably have way more than 3 or 4 bullets that you accomplished in the job. So this is another area where the tailoring can come in very handy, and we'll talk in detail about that. But this is what did I do? What did I accomplish? So in this statement, you want to have the results in there. This is the results part, right? So this is my situation. This is my situation. This is my task. I implemented, consulted, or developed. What action did I take? And then the result of that. So an example of a result is, let me give you a good result. I don't have a good result. Oh, right here. Implemented 2 initiatives that increased the diversity in our talent pipeline by 15% within 1 year. So that's that result oriented. And as I previously stated, I could do some work, but I'm not applying for jobs right now. So trying to get that captured and documented can be important. Then you have your education portion. There are some things that I'll highlight here as we go forward, and then the optional certifications and projects section. Any questions up to this point? And I promise I'm not just going to talk at you the whole time. We're going to do some interactive work with this. Okay. So now we're going to go into some of the do's and don'ts that are related to resume writing. So the first and the biggest do and the most annoying thing to do is to tailor your resume for every job you apply for. Now, if you're on the hunt and you're applying for 20 jobs a day, this is a hard task. If they're all similar, you may not have a hard time using the same resume. But the importance of this is so significant that, and I'll give an example. So in HR, I have done literally, the only job I haven't done in HR in my career is compensation. That's it. So there's no way for me to highlight that through maybe 10 years of experience on a resume. So if I am applying for a job that is predominantly like the one I have now, I would highlight my engagement, employee engagement experience, my performance management experience, like the experience I have in that. So that's what I mean by tailoring, but we'll actually go through some practical examples related to tailoring. Be clear and concise. Try not to use that jargon, those things that people may not understand. In Tennessee state government, I would say y'all, but I've been here almost 5 years now, so I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. We speak a different language than industry. So, but if you're applying in Tennessee state government, corrections speaks a different language than commerce and insurance. essentially. Maybe not a complete different language, but there's a dialect, right? There's a difference in the way we use things. So try to be clear and concise and don't use that jargon. Start with a strong summary. That may be the only thing that gets read. I told you, some people don't spend much time on a resume. They'll read that and your skills, and they may glance over your experience, or someone may go straight to your experience. But just making sure that each part of your resume is strong is going to be very important. And then this goes back to those documented actions, using those action verbs. Don't just say what you were responsible for, really highlight what you did. Did you manage? Did you execute? Did you develop? What did you do in the situation? And then there's those quantifying of achievement. If you have a quantifiable element to add to it, people's eyes go to numbers. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I know if I see something that says 90% or 15% or something like that, my eyes are going to go there as I'm skimming or reviewing that resume. Proofread carefully. Have a second person review. I know we think we can review our own work, but it is very hard to do. And spell check only works when it's not a real word, right? So they can also check it for clarity. Have someone outside of your industry read it and see if they could still understand, or outside of state government read it and see if they could still understand. And that would mean that you know you've been clear. So having that second set of eyes is truly important. And then highlighting those skills, specifically those that are relevant to the position you're applying for. The things not to do, don't use an unprofessional email address. Who all seen the jdub at 101shotclock@gmail.com or something like that, right? Like just these crazy email addresses. And if you've seen them, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, so I've seen some crazy email addresses as I'm reviewing resumes, and it kind of just makes you wonder, So that is something that you want to make sure. I usually recommend first name, last name, maybe a number in there or something along those lines. The use of first person. We're not going to go with I or we on your resume, so don't do that. Don't include personal details. Not a great time to share personal detail because it invites bias. And we'll go over what some examples of that could be, but we don't want those personal details in our resumes. Using those fancy graphics, color blocking, it can lead to resume parsers and applicant tracking systems not able to read your resume. And if it can't read your resume, that's going to be a problem, right? So I'll give you some industry recommendations about how you can best pass that initial screening if the company is using any type of AI, and to make the resume parser work better for you when it comes to filling out the application. What else? Oh, don't add your photo. Again, that invites bias. People have biases against different things. They could be mad because you have blonde hair. They could be mad because you're skinny. They could be mad because you're whatever. But people have biases, so you want to make sure that you don't give them a reason to think of anything before you even get an interview. Yes, I would, Jada, I would recommend not using a year, because that year people are going to make assumptions. So they're going to say, oh, Jane Doe was born in 1994, so she's barely out of school, or whatever, or make other assumptions that maybe that one said 1955 and they're like, oh, they're a senior citizen, but they're really not. That was just their favorite number. So I would just recommend not using anything that looks like a year. Don't exaggerate or lie. That's important. So I'm going to tell you, I just did a hiring, so this is fresh on my mind, but I'm going to tell you, I would read these resumes and I'd be so impressed. I was so impressed with these resumes, and they would get in the interview and I'm expecting them to share some of the things that they've stated they did on their resume, and I'm getting examples that don't match. And in my mind, I'm asking myself, did they do those things? So don't exaggerate or lie, and know what's on your resume and be able to speak intelligently. Like that 15% increase. I could tell you the whole story surrounding that 15% increase in the 2 programs that we implemented to make that 15% increase. If I couldn't, that would be a red flag. Like, why is that on their resume as an accomplishment? The other thing is try not to leave those unexplained gaps. If you do a chronological resume and there's a 2-year gap, the good thing is to try to explain that. Some people take time off to raise their kids, both men and women. That can be explained through, I've seen someone put it in there like a domestic something, but you could just put the little brief description of what that time and account for that time so that it doesn't leave, because if I don't know the answer, I'm probably not going to invite you for an interview to find out why. How many years of experience needs to be included? They say don't go back more than 10, but I'll tell you, I tried to include whatever experience is relevant to the job. So when I was working in diversity, one of my roles early on had been to be an equal opportunity employment specialist in the Army for a while. And that just happened to be early on in my career, but I wanted to highlight that experience because the other thing that people use experience for is salary. So I wanted to show that I actually had domestic engineer person, good. But I wanted to show that I actually had the 5 to 7 years that would increase my my qualification to be like a senior specialist versus a specialist in that company. So that's so April, it depends, but usually the recommend is about 10 years of experience. You don't want one thing, you don't want your resume to be over 2 pages, that's for sure. So if you've had a lot of jobs, it may be harder to go back 10 years. But the experience that's relevant to the job is when I would say the most important, but 10 years is the recommended. So don't go over 2 pages unless you're applying for federal government. Nobody's reading. I know. I will say I did review, there was resumes that were 3 and 4 pages. I tried to review them. I would skim and find the sections that I thought was important. But if you, and I'm just speaking for self right now, I probably wouldn't list all my achievements in my college programs unless I don't have anything else to list. And some people do that. They'll, list a lot of that. So Adam said, what if you held multiple positions within the same organization? What is the best way to demonstrate that progression? So the way, and I'll show you my resume, but the way that I did that was, so I was in the Army, so I didn't want to keep restating different things about the Army, so I just put the United States Army and put the years, and then I put the jobs below that, so I didn't have to say, well, I was in the Republic of South Korea, and I was in Oklahoma, and I was in South Carolina. I just listed my jobs, so that's one way. Tennessee State Government, you could use that as a header, and then just list out the multiple roles. Instead of keep relisting Tennessee State Government, just kind of put that and put your whole tenure in Tennessee State Government and then list out the time you spent at each of the levels is another way to do that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about writing that strong content. So again, we're going to talk about that compelling summary, those key skills. You want to describe work, experience with impact. So again, that STAR: action, the quantifying achievements, try to use the STAR method, and we're going to tailor our information to the job. So I'm going to show you how to do exactly what it is that I'm telling you to do. So here we go. So now I want you can do this at the same time, but you will get a break to do this as well. But if you find it easier, you could just pay attention to mine. But here is a job description that I pulled from a role that I would be interested in, just as I asked you all to do. And what I did was copy and paste it into the slide, obviously. But then I went through and pulled out some things that felt very important to me in this job description. So Government contracting requirements. That's something unique that everyone may not have. Performance management, federal marketplace, federal and state employment laws and regulations, strong understanding of government contracting compliance requirements. So I went through and pulled out the language that I thought was important and potentially that I had. So that's usually how I start. This is kind of how I start. I look at the job description and I say, now don't get me wrong, I have talent acquisition experience and compliance experience, but really pulling out the things that I think are going to stand out. If you had a break-in service, I would probably break them apart. That's probably what I would do, Jada. And her question was, what if there was a break-in service? Would you still recommend grouping all roles under a single header? I probably wouldn't. I probably would break those out and explain my leave of absence or my break-in service. Okay, so now we're back to the tailoring our resume to the job. So now once you've reviewed that job description and you've kind of highlighted, have you ever read it? You can come off mute and tell me, or you can drop in the chat, but have you ever read a job description and you're like, that's the perfect job for me? Like that is literally like, I'm made for this job. Have you ever had that feeling? So April has. Anybody else? Percy has. Terica has. So that's usually the ones where I will take the time to really do the work to tailor it. Because if I really think that this is the job for me, I have to show that. Because they don't know me and they don't know what I've done and why I'd be a good fit. So again, I will go through and pull out all the important parts in the job description. So the next thing we're going to do is look at my actual written part. So my header is human resource management. So they know my experience is in human resource management. So I've also told them my 20 years of progressive experience in certain areas. So we're going to go back now. So the things that I had put up that I thought were important was conflict resolution, government contracting, performance management, federal and state employment laws. So when I come up here, the one thing I don't say here is that I have 20, I actually have 23 years, but I wouldn't even probably say that because I don't want to tell people how old I am, but 20 years of experience just in Tennessee, just in federal government. So I actually have an additional now 7 years in HR outside of the federal government, but highlighting that because clearly that's important to them. So the other way that I would probably highlight what I have is they had a lot about, in there, why is it not letting me be great? Okay, let me go back there. Oh, well, sorry, y'all. Go back this way. Okay, so the other thing that I don't really highlight is in the skills section is some of these things. So when you look at it, maybe I would put performance management here because they really didn't talk a lot about engagement. They did talk about development and training, so I would leave that. They talked about talent acquisition, so I would potentially leave that. So when we go back, another area is conflict resolution. So I'm a certified federal mediator. So I feel like I have a level of conflict resolution that I could put on there. Are you getting kind of how you would tailor or any questions about how you potentially would tailor the first portion of your resume to meet the needs or to meet the objectives of the job? Okay, so then we're going to move on to the next section. So this is where I tell people that I have something called a comprehensive resume. So I have a short 1 page, I have a 2 page, and then I have something that's called my comprehensive resume. And my comprehensive resume has a lot of bullets under each one. Because if you're somewhere for 2 years, you probably have a lot of accomplishments. If you're somewhere for longer than that, you definitely have a lot of accomplishments. So you may forget what those are, though, in an interview. You may forget what those are in once that job is in your rear view for a while. You may forget what they are. So I try to have a list of many. And then when you think about the specific job, you pick the ones that are most relevant, and then you prioritize them in the list by that relevancy. So an example of that, well, here we go again. Let me do it this way. My little scroll thing is just not working. So here you'll see government contracting requirements. So there's a whole office, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, that does audits and all of that. So my last company, I spent 2 years, the whole 2 years I was there, we were in 2 OFCCP audits. And my accomplishment as it relates to that is here. Guided the organization through 2 Office of Federal Contract Compliance program audits, commended on veteran and individuals with disability hiring and outreach. So the fact that I was commended and that didn't have findings, because I'm going to tell you those are hard, and I told you that the audits last, there was 1 at each site, and one lasted 18 months and one lasted about 20 months. But this would be something I would move to the top of this role, because I want that to be highlighted. Any questions on that? Thanks, April. Okay, so I won't belabor the point because I'm going to give you guys a chance to look at your job posting. And then I want you to identify, I'll just go with 3 because I don't want us to take too much time, but identify 5 and look at your resume and identify 3 ways that you would tailor your resume. Okay? And then we're going to do a quick report out. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes. So at 11:42, and even if you just come up with 1, that's fine too. But we're going to do a quick report out for ways that you found that you could tailor your resume. Have about 1 more minute. Who wants to go first and share how they tailored something on their resume? From what section you even tailored? Don't be shy. Okay, Stasha?
And don't laugh at me, it's really bad. So, the one thing I pointed out that I would do with mine is add a summary because I do not have one. So, I would add a summary. That would be like the main thing that I would go back and do. And like spell checks, and I would definitely take I out of my resume and just like the whole copying and pasting of the job description, I would go back and put in my accomplishments. So I need a lot of work with mine, but that's just something.
Well, good, Stasha. Thank you for sharing that. But that's what this is for. That's the whole purpose. Christina put that. We don't laugh here. That's why we're all here. Yes, Adam,
Okay.
you wanted to share?
So I kind of took the easy route and plugged the job description into AI and attached my resume to and said, hey, write this to make it kind of for this, write my resume for this job. And it did kind of condense it a lot. And also it did highlight some of the required qualifications in the actual job title that kind of that I did well in my previous roles.
Thanks, Adam, because AI can help you. I am, y'all, I chat GPT and me are best friends. And let me tell you that sometimes I fight with chat GPT because it doesn't give me what I want and we argue, but I love it. And so, but what I'll say is don't let it produce something without it being, without you reviewing it and knowing exactly what it's saying so that you're able to speak to whatever's on your resume. That's my recommendation. And then just the formatting of it, just make sure it doesn't look like AI produced it.
Definitely
Um,
got to proofread it for sure.
Yeah. And have you ever noticed that AI will sometimes misspell stuff and I'll be like, you misspelled this, and they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, wait a minute. That's very rude of you. Okay. So April said mine is more of a comprehensive resume. So I would lean more into my skills section, add a summary. I do not currently have that section. That section. Oh, okay. Add a summary and add my LinkedIn profile address. Yeah. So one of the things that I do, y'all, is I keep a running tally of my jobs on LinkedIn, which is helpful too, because if you only put maybe your last 10 years of experience on your resume and you have more, your LinkedIn profile can show that experience. And then the other piece is I go to those LinkedIn profiles for the people I choose to interview and I look at if they have recommendations and kind of the things that they're posting. Are they really in the same, you know, I guess you would say the same space as the work is. So making sure that they, that kind of thing. So yeah, good, good. And the comprehensive resume is good. It's just not one that I recommend you apply with. That having that is essential, but I recommend those tailoring points. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to share that they updated or tailored? Okay.
I'm sorry,
So
I got a
I'm
question.
okay.
Yeah, I have been working with the state for 12 years. I have, but different positions. What is suggestion, as far as try to narrow down? um,
Oh, narrow down the things on your
yeah,
resume.
because right now my resume is 3 pages, and all of it is really, it's kind of a list of the different positions I have held within the Department of Revenue. Um, so what is like some suggestions as far as like key things I need to look at into making it just 2 pages?
So that's where that tailoring would come in. It would be like, it's not that you don't list each job, but it would be like um potentially if it's promotions within a department within revenue, then maybe those get grouped. So some grouping, but then I would also say that tailoring, being selective, because you may not want to show the full 12 years of experience and really pick the things that are going to get your resume noticed for that specific role. Because like if I can tell you back in the day, I was an administrative assistant. I don't know that that's going to be applicable to a role that I may apply for now. Now, if I was applying for an admin assistant, because I may do that someday because I like that work, but if I was going to apply for that, I would definitely put it previously an admin assistant for 3 years or something like that at the bottom of my experience, or even elevate it to the top. So that really is the art, is that tailoring piece and understanding that everybody doesn't need to know everything you've done. They need to know probably the most impactful things that relate to that job.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then Courtney had dropped something in the chat. I need to remove my location and change the order of my experience to match the most important parts of the job description. Okay. And then Erica said, I have a question. I'm currently an intern and I'm graduating from school in May. Do I need to add my relevant coursework on my education section? For example, I added that I have taken Tax 1 and intermediate accounting, or is it better to just skip this? So I am not in this field, so I would like you to take my advice with a grain of salt and maybe ask some people within the Department of Revenue. But for me, coursework, unless it specifically states you need this coursework in the job description, I would say the degree alone should get you the degree you're going to have, because you can put the degree and then the projected date, like you're currently an intern and I'm applying for jobs, but I'll have this degree in May of whatever. That would probably be my recommended way. But if anybody in revenue, I would say talk to people in your specific field to make sure the guidance I gave you is applicable.
It makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And then Percy said he has different resumes for different positions. Yeah, sometimes you need a complete. So I have a diversity comprehensive resume, and then I have my HR, because they're two different things. They overlap a lot, and there's a lot of intermingling. But if I'm going straight for an HR job, I need it to focus on those HR things. If I was going straight for my diversity work, as I previously was, then that would be the space that I would highlight. So yes. Yeah, and April stated most of the coursework specific requirements would require a college transcript, so it really doesn't need to be on your resume. All right. Thank you all. So we're going to keep going and getting through. So again, tailoring is about fit. It's not rewriting it from scratch. It's really using that employer's language, the language they use in their job posting, because that's what they understand. And so you have to kind of be able to translate your experience into what the language that they're speaking, and then really prioritize that relevance, and then also the results that you've achieved in your current position. I always tell my team, I don't recommend looking for another job until you have the 3 or 4 items to put on your resume from your current job. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to articulate that in an interview. What impact did you have from your last role? Okay, so this is for you all. What would you change here that you see on this resume or on my contact info? What would you change? This is your test. What would you change? Uh-oh, I'm trying to keep a check. Take out your personal address. Boom. Good job. What else? Anything else? The location. The location. Remove that mailing address. None of that's needed. Good job. Y'all get an A for that section. So what would you take out here? Or what would you change? I gave you guys a hint. Yeah, get a professional email. You saw my butterfly, my butterfly email address. Anything you would change here, or is it good? Remove the years. Yes, Lisa. So to be honest, I didn't get my degrees till I was in the Army, so I had to do it in little baby chunks. So I felt like I joined the Army in 1996 and I didn't get my degree until 2008. So that was 12 years it took me to get that degree. But anyway, this tells you this people are doing math. I guarantee you people are doing math. So if you don't want people to really think about your age when you're applying for a position, I just recommend the year is not needed. They don't need to know when you graduated. And April said maybe a GPA. I would only add the GPA if the GPA is a part of the requirements. So like some engineering positions, they require a certain GPA within that field. And so that is something you can add, but it's not necessary or because you can do great in school. It doesn't mean you're going to be, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be productive in the workforce. So just a thought, you can add it, but that's another thing to bias someone. Some people are great at school, but they're not good at work. I've met them. I've met some of those people in my day. Okay, so what about the skills section? What's wrong, or what would you change related to this? You can come off mute, because I know typing can sometimes take some time. There you go. Rebecca got it. Bullet points. Why am I writing a paragraph? Who reads paragraphs anymore? Most people do not. Great job, Rebecca. Yeah, tech and communication skills is very vague. More action-oriented words. And just those words, right? Like if I put Qualtrics, that means I have that skill. That means I'm proficient in that. If I say Microsoft Office, that means I have that skill. I'm proficient in that. And who, let me ask you this question. I mean, like most computers, most work uses Microsoft Office, so we're at least minimally proficient in that. So unless there's something that it would significantly increase your chances of an interview, I would not put some of those things on there. So here's my certifications. What would you change here? So I showed you guys the job description of the role that I was applying for. Yeah, Percy said it. CPR. CPR ain't got nothing to do with this job. So why do I put it on my resume? Don't make people read more than what they need to. Just leave it off, right? Like all the other ones would apply to the role that I was, whatever. But that CPR certification for HR is not necessary. Yes, exactly, April. Great job, y'all. Okay, so I think I have another section, yes. So how many people have ever seen this on a resume? This is the bane of my existence. But what would you change here? Or what should you change? Is it relevant to the position, Adam? Take it off, Stasha. You guys are right up my alley. I would not usually put any honors or achievements unless it was something that was specifically relevant to the role. Like if you need leadership and you may need leadership for something, you could put class president maybe from 2000 to 2004 because that shows a little bit of leadership. But let me just tell you, who, I'm not in a sorority or fraternity, but I know plenty of people who are, and they take that stuff serious. So if I'm in a competing fraternity or a sorority, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, nope, he's a Kappa, I'm out. Or she's a Kappa. I don't even know if it's a he or a she at this point, but you get what I'm saying. Oh, they went to, let's see, I'm just trying to figure out another thing that, oh, they went to Troy University and that was my, I don't know, but biases can creep in, so you never want to give them a reason. Yeah, Christina says, I'm over here wondering what some of this is. It distracts from what I need to know. Exactly. Only put what that employer needs to know about you. Never give them more, because you can give them more in the interview. To get the interview, you want to be clear, concise, and show that you're the best person for the job. And if it has nothing to do with it, don't just try to fill up the pages. Okay, so last section here. What would you change? It is important to put dates for each job history, Stasha, because years of experience matter when people are looking at minimum qualifications. So oftentimes, yes, it does matter. And I recommend doing it if at all possible. Anything wrong with the references? When I gave you guys the sections of a resume, did I say that references was one of them? I didn't, because you should never give references. I wouldn't even put reference as a request, because they already know they're going to check your references. They're going to ask you to complete a form usually to allow them to call those said references. So having them ready is good, but I wouldn't even put my resume says references are available upon request, because if you don't provide the references, they're not going to give you a job. So yeah. So recommend just leave that off completely. Don't even have it as a section, because it just takes up valuable real estate on your 1 or 2 page resume. So that's my recommendation. If you want to add that, the correct thing is to say references available upon request. Don't ever add them to your resume. Because another part of that is in Tennessee state government, you may list Jenny Lee and I may not like Jenny Lee, right? Like there's biases creep in anything we do. So you have to be very careful about the information that you provide. So the last thing we're going to cover, and then at the end of this, there's a checklist. So I'll show you, there's a whole checklist for you to go through your own resume, and I will send that out. I'll get it to Christina to send out. But the last thing I'm going to talk about is your resume. So I have one more poll. Let's do it really quick. I'm trying to be quick here. To see if you, well, let me find it. There should be another one. Oh, here it is. Okay. Mine is acting weird. I don't know if you guys are. Oh no, it worked now. Okay, so far the question was, do you submit your resume in a PDF or a Word document? So the majority of you all submit it in a PDF. 21% of you, or 20% do it in Word, and then 8% said it depends. And I would like to tell you that the true answer is that it depends, and I'll tell you why. So who's heard of an applicant tracking system? Anybody heard of this as a acronym? ATS is also the word. But an applicant tracking system has some tools built into it. Some of those tools are scanning those resumes to filter candidates based on keywords, to look at formatting, all that stuff before human eyes ever see it. So the recommendation currently, because not all applicant tracking systems are created equal, is if you are sending your resume to a human person, that means someone asks you for your resume and you're going to send it to them, a PDF is the best choice for that. If you are uploading your resume into an applicant tracking system, the recommended version is the Word version, and to use that simple formatting with none of those tables, graphics, pictures, color blocking, all of those things. So again, avoiding those tables, text boxes, headers, footers, graphics, and logos, all of that will make your resume more applicant tracking system friendly. So that's kind of the answer. But if you use a PDF, it's not the end of the world. The resume parser, things such as that may not work as well. But that is the recommendation that I'll give. So the other piece to highlight, oh, it's 12:01. I'm so sorry, y'all. We're a minute over, but I'm just going to go over this really quickly. Please don't use fancy fonts. Use the traditional fonts that are offered, that are clear to read. Make sure your font size is 10 to 12. If you want to do a larger size for your section headers, make those 14 to 16. But again, that valuable real estate is what you're trying to conserve. So don't use overly bold and all that good stuff. Use those clear section headings. Like centered section headings, the recommendation is to stick to left align for readability. But I, again, like what I like, and so I like mine centered, but they do recommend as a best practice to do left align. And then again, length for early career professionals, you want to keep it to 1 page, and then 2 pages for those people with a longer work history. And then margins, you definitely don't want to go below a 1/2 inch to try to just squeeze more words onto the page. Recommended is really 1 inch, but you can go down to a 1/2 inch if you so choose. So what are your questions for me? I know we're 2 minutes over, so I know some people have to get back to work. Bullet points are usually best if they're just the traditional. I wouldn't add in any special character type bullet points, like the one that has all the 4 points on it or anything like that, because I think that can throw off the ATS as well. Any other questions before we end? Yes, Dasha.
I wanted to get it down in my notes really quick. Did you say if you're uploading it, use Microsoft Word?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Microsoft
what
Word.
was for the PDF?
The PDF is if you're sending it to a person.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to drop the slides in the chat for you all. I think I am. Let's try so that way you can just download it and you'll have that checklist for future use if you want to. Yes, I'll do it after we end maybe because it's going to take a moment. But yes, thank you all for your time. Christina, do you have anything for everyone?
Nope. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for taking the time today, y'all. And I was getting ready to pop in the chat. After our 1 o'clock session today, we will be using an online randomizer to select somebody for a very special surprise door prize. And so stay tuned to the notifications so that we can announce who that winner is, and we'll coordinate getting that to you. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank y'all. I'm going to upload this now.